Now, we continue with the next belt of the conversation, also looking at the legal victories that have been chalked. A partial victory for dual citizens, as the Supreme Court has ruled that they can hold some positions hitherto forbidden by the Constitution. What are these positions, and what does this ruling mean for advocates of dual citizenship? We're delving into that, among other issues as well. Dr. Arthur Kennedy stays with us for that discussion as well, as we also bring in our other guests as and when they join us. But, Doc, so here's another bit that comes to mind as far as this Supreme Court ruling is concerned. And let me also, we have Dr. John Osai-Kwapong. He's a CDD fellow. He has joined the conversation as well. We'll be interacting with him shortly. Dr. Osai-Kwapong, good morning.
Good morning, Benjamin. How are you?
I'm very well. It's good to have you join the conversation. I had already reached out to Dr. Kennedy, so let me just take his initial thoughts on this. Dr.
Sure.
Arthur Kennedy, so here we are. We've had this instance of James Jachikwesin in the Asin area, and I'm addressing this to Dr. Arthur Kennedy as well. We've had this development and all that. So I'd just like to pick your thoughts on the court's ruling in regard or in respect of this situation before we move on.
Okay. I actually think that this is one of the most significant rulings by the Supreme Court in our history. 6-1 majority is very clear, and it is unfortunate that it took this long for them to invalidate aspects of 289 about what in effect was the 2000 citizenship bill. And it is very self-evident and very clear in their ruling. I made public-spirited comments about James Jachikwesin's issue. I thought that it was a travesty of justice. I was surprised that the Electoral Commission did not, for example, file an amicus brief when it got to the Supreme Court to defend him. I thought that he was validly cleared as a candidate to run, and it was the exercise of justice that he won. Of course, the Supreme Court's ruling leaves in place 94 and 82, which are parts of the bill that are still before Parliament. And so I hope that Parliament will clear these outstanding hurdles so that diasporans can take part fully in our political discourse. From us, the way we see this is that all countries that are making significant progress are relying on their diaspora citizens. And indeed, historically, diasporans have always been important. It goes as far back as Joseph in the Bible. When you look at our own history, actually, Ken Osei Tutu was an Ashanti diasporan in Akwamu who came back home to found the Ashanti nation. We know about Nkrumah and how his return changed our political dynamics for good. And we have a lot of examples about the Black Stars and the role of our diasporans. But I even think that it is not even the notable examples. It is the idea that the 1 to 4 million Ghanaians who live abroad care about this country. By saying this, I do not by any disparage Ghanaians who spend most of their time living at home. I have friends who live at home, excellent people, you know, Benjamin Annan, Kweku Pencil, Ohenebad, and so with whom I have deep conversations about the interests of Ghana. But I can tell you that some of the best conversations I've had regarding Ghana's interests are with diasporans. Kweku Asare, Professor Azar, who has done outstanding work, Kofi Boateng, Mohammed Idris, what do they call it? And a lot of others like Berimo Opon-Owusu. I can tell you that some of the deepest conversations I've had about Ghana are with diasporans. As Professor Azar once told me, I've never even dreamt about America. All my dreams are about Ghana. I say this to it is really self-injury for us to ignore our diasporans. India does a lot of its diasporans. China does a lot of, for example, in Senegal, we just saw the election of a president with significant diasporan contributions. They even have members of parliament elected directly from the diaspora, not to talk about the significant financial contributions that diasporans make. But you want, and one of the things that we are all ignoring, it is not even people like me and Kweku Asare and other diasporans who are, of course, aged and have passed the middle point of our lives that are important. It is our children. And let me tell you a short story. About a few weeks ago, your colleague Samson Ladi invited me to talk about change on the Change Speaker Series. My son, who is in medical school, he attends University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, was back home on a visit. So I picked him up from the airport on Friday night, and when I brought him, I was busy preparing my notes. Dad, what are you doing? I told him. He looked at it. He got very interested, got me to set up my camera and all that. The young man got up at 3 a.m. to watch my presentation. And since then, he's always been engaging me in Ghana. I'm saying that if you get me, you get about maybe, God willing, 10, 15 years of my life. But if you get the generation of my children and the children of all these diasporans, they've been born here, incorporated with its ethics, they have global outlooks. These are the people who want to be invested into the Ghana project. And when we do that, we will do very well, because I tell you, in this century, the countries that will do well are those who will tap into the full potential of their diasporan populations.
Interesting submissions there. And of course, I'll come back to you later on this point, even as I go to Dr. Osai Kwapong, about your 2017 piece about the diaspora being worth its weight in gold. $60 billion, the contribution in 2012, as far as Africa, the continent, is concerned. So, and of course, that without any strings, more than foreign development aid at the time. Mm-hmm. So that gives a lot of food for thought. But let me come now to Dr. John Osai Kwapong. How do you view this new development where the apex court of our land has said that it's not all these roles that, will forbid you becoming a member? Dr. Osai Kwapong, that one is for you because you're a dual citizen. You can still be a dual citizen and occupy some key positions in the country. Doc, Osai Kwapong, what is your reflection on that?
Good morning again, and good morning to Dr. Arthur Kennedy. As Dr. Kennedy said, it's a ruling, it's a decision in the right direction. I think it's very progressive that you can, it's not always your citizens who are resident at home or your single citizen, like just only Ghanaians that can contribute to the progress and the development of the nation. I believe that if you have dual citizens who live, in other countries, in the diaspora, who can contribute positively to the development of your country, that you shouldn't rob yourself of that opportunity to tap into whatever knowledge, skills, expertise that they will be able to bring to bear, upon, the country and help it move forward. So for me, I believe that this is a decision in the right direction. I applaud the Supreme Court for doing that. I mean, I know that over the years, when this dual citizenship issue has come up with respect to where they can serve or cannot serve in public offices, the argument has always been about some sort of a conflict of loyalty, right? That if you were to put a dual citizen in, the common example that was always used was, well, what if you have a dual citizen, in a particular role, and there's a conflict between the two countries where he or she holds citizenship, they will be conflicted, and where will their loyalty lie, and et cetera, et cetera. I never fully bought into that argument, and so it's good to see that the court has come out to say do not bar your dual citizens from serving in some of these critical roles.
Do you feel then that, like you've mentioned, has this been too long in coming, this ruling? And have
Yes,
we as a result been deprived of some of the intellectual and other capacities of some Ghanaians because of this situation? Because, like you said, I mean, there are countries that allow dual citizens to occupy crucial roles.
Right. Better late than never. Hopefully, there are still dual citizens who are interested in serving in these public roles, and who would also be given the opportunity to do that. As Dr. Arthur Kennedy said, it's our children, who even become very critical to this project. I mean, I have two daughters, born and raised here in the US, but are very interested in Ghana. We have lots of conversations about Ghana, and so for me, someday, if they want to be able to contribute in some way or shape or form by serving in some public role in Ghana, this offers them the opportunity to do that. And so, we should be able to tap into the talents wherever we can find them. And this is also not to say that there aren't talented individuals in Ghana, but it's just that you want to broaden, widen your net as much as you can, because at the end of the day, it is the development of Ghana that is important to all of us. I've never been of the opinion that being a dual citizen or not being permanently resident in Ghana makes you any more or any less vested in the country. We all care deeply. We are all very interested and passionate about issues of development in Ghana, and want to see the country progress. And for those who want to be involved via the public service route, I think this allows them to be able to do that.
Now, if you look at our Citizenship Act, conjointly with the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, it originally expressly proscribed dual nationality in Ghana. And then we had the Constitution of Ghana Amendment Act 1996, Act 527, which sought to alter the position. And it actually brought to bear, however, you would realize that in Section 8.2 of Act 527, it excludes dual citizens from holding certain public offices, namely, and I'm going to walk through some of them: Ambassador or High Commissioner, Secretary to the Cabinet, Chief of Defense Staff of any service, Inspector General of Police, Commissioner, Customs, Excise and Preventive Service, Director of Immigration Services, any office specified by an Act of Parliament. And the amendment also made it possible for the revival of citizenship that was lost as a result of requirements of marriage in another country, among others. Now, with this ruling of the Apex Court, some are saying that it will not suffice just to deal with the low-hanging fruit, but in fact, we must go the full haul and see whether we can push this to the apex of leadership, maybe to the Speaker of Parliament or members of Parliament, to the Chief Justice, to even the President. What do you think about that?
I mean, yes, for certain public offices, and I think we want to sort of expand this as much as possible. Probably there are basis for maybe a few restrictions, right? Maybe at the highest office of the land, like the presidency, you could say, well, maybe when it comes to the presidency, we ought to make some, exceptions. But for me, you want to expand this as much as you can, because again, you want to ensure that you have the best pool, of talents that you can draw from. And so if that means that you allow your dual citizens to run as a member of parliament, you do that. And if there's a basis upon which you don't think it is prudent for them to contest for the highest office of the land, like the presidency, it has to be a well articulated reason. Probably there are some really high stakes of probably, let's say, national security issues, state secrets, etc., that perhaps you may not feel too comfortable to allow a dual citizen to be in the know of that. But even then, again, you ask yourself, are you depriving then your country sometimes of the kinds of talents that it needs to be able to move the development needle forward? So in principle, yes, I agree that we want to make this as expansive, as possible. Because at the end of the day, it is all about, how wide is the pool from which I am trying to tap to ensure that my country becomes, the country that it can be with all of its potential.
Right. Before I go back to Dr. Arthur Kennedy, let me bring in Roxanne Nelson Dafiamakpo. He's Member of Parliament for South Dai. He joins the conversation. I mean, from the legal angle, this, and then the next issue we're going to be contemplating as well, spouses, emoluments, and all of that. But on this specific issue, welcome aboard, by the way.
Thank you.
Dual citizenship. This has been something that you've spoken about, especially courtesy of the James Jachikwason situation. Yeah. Now, there has been a ruling by the Apex Court. How did you receive it?
Well, with mixed feelings, because it's the same court that, as it were, injuncted my colleague in Parliament from carrying out his constitutional mandate based on a matter before it, which is yet to be determined. But the person proceeded to bring an application or notice for the grant of an interim injunction to prevent him from carrying out his mandate, purely because the person claimed that at the time that he filed to contest as a member of Parliament, he had not denounced his Canadian citizenship. And so on that basis, he was not qualified to be elected as a member of Parliament. And so eventually, when that matter was determined, he had to go back to recontest, and then he won and he's been brought back or reinstated, as it were. And so for the court to now, after 48 months...
better late than never.
Yes,
we even had Roe versus Wade.
I agree.
Even Roe versus Wade. Centuries.
I agree. So I'm saying that I am gauging the mood of the court. Because Jachikwason, it's still, some aspects of that case is still before the Supreme Court. So would this decision undercut what is before them? Or their view in that matter will be different? So these are the basis upon which I had the mixed feelings. But the other fundamental problem I have with the decision is that the people who advocated for this said, well, those categories of public offices which were closed to persons of dual nationality to holding weren't enough, so we should add more. And now more has been added. And I hear that, well, like when I came in, I heard you say that, well, then we must as well go on the full hall. And
so I was saying that some people had said that.
Yes, exactly my point.
Then
because you see, when the amendment was effected in 1996 to introduce dual nationality, dual citizenship, these were the issues. That is why the Minister of Interior is given the authority to indicate, as it was, certain category of public offices that his opinion had to be limited to persons holding dual nationality. But the Supreme Court, with this decision, and we use statute, we use Parliament to give that power to the Minister of Interior in matters of citizenship. Now, the Supreme Court, by this decision, has taken that power away from the Minister of Interior and has actually judicially pronounced on the matter, given the relief that has been brought before it in this case. So when I walked in, and the idea is that, well, we jump from the basic to the secondary, we must as well move to the tertiary and have the full hall. It's a beautiful idea to have, but you see, fundamentally in international law, there's a reason, there's a jurisprudence underpinning why even those who champion global citizenship, now we are even moving from nationalities to global citizenship, still think that certain portfolios must be limited to people who pay allegiance to one state. You know, there is a technical difference between citizenship and allegiance.
Right.
So if that's why I brought my constitution. If I may read our oath of allegiance.
So briefly, if you can.
Yes.
Because we're pressing.
So for instance, I, Eche Dafomako, do in the name of the Almighty God swear that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Republic of Ghana as by law established. That I will uphold the sovereignty and integrity of Ghana, and that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. So help me God. And I've advanced these arguments that I am not against the move to allow Ghanaians who hold dual citizenship to hold certain portfolios. But some, for instance, a head of an organ of state, like the Chief Justice, with all due respect to the advocates, I think that it should be limited to people.
To one per the law who has sole citizenship.
Exactly.
Okay.
In my
Chief Justice. How about Speaker of Parliament? So by extension, MPs, because then the Speaker is picked from the fold, right?
Yes. No. In this decision, I don't think the Speaker is affected. But once we've added the Chief Justice,
the Speaker is not affected. I'm saying for those who are calling for it. You said Chief Justice.
I am making a logical argument. I'm saying once we have added the Chief Justice, that it could be a portfolio that could be occupied by somebody with dual citizenship, then of course, being the head of that organ of state,
it extends to logically to other heads.
Exactly. And I see the wisdom in that, because you see, we have had Ghanaians who had been Chief Justice in some other republics.
True.
Justice Apalu was the first Ghanaian to be a Chief Justice of Kenya. And Kenya, by parity of whatever we do, is like Ghana. Kenya is like Ghana in the East Coast. Because our things are so similar. Then we have subsequently had Justice Brobe and all others becoming Chief Justice of the Gambia. I think we also had a Ghanaian who was a Chief Justice of Botswana or Zambia, one of those. So, you see, to become a Chief Justice of a nation, which means you are head of the judicial organ of that state, you must have taken the oath of allegiance to swear.
Right.
Or sworn the oath of allegiance to bear true faith and allegiance to Kenya at the time that
in other words, do you, for the sake of time, do you support the argument that my allegiance doesn't necessarily tie down to my citizenship?
No, they are two technically different things.
Right.
I may have dual citizenship. Okay.
So that is understood. That point is understood between us. But the point is, must it or does it affect output in any way?
Your allegiance cannot commingle with an allegiance to any other country. Once you take that oath, you are cut off.
Right.
That's why we are making that distinction that citizenship is materially different from.
So the person can be a citizen of, let's say, Bahrain, Ghana,
let's say Canada,
at the same time,
let's say
Canada, allegiance to Ghana.
Yes, let's say Canadian citizen who is also a Ghanaian, appointed the Minister of State and takes the oath of allegiance. The expectations is that you bear true faith and allegiance to the unitary state of Ghana.
When you're becoming a citizen of Canada, would you swear allegiance to Canada?
I should think so, because we practice what we call the common law.
And that's where the devil
exactly.
So if you've sworn allegiance to, let's say, Canada, and James Jachikwason comes to mind, if you've sworn allegiance to Canada, right, and then you are taking up a role in Ghana, and you are swearing allegiance here as well. It then, in some ways, suggests a renunciation of that allegiance to Canada, doesn't it?
Yes, we call it recant.
Tacitly.
No, you call it recantation. You have to recant that oath. You have to forswear. You swear and forswear. So you have to forswear that even though I remain a Canadian citizen, I am recanting my allegiance because now I bear true faith and allegiance to the unity.
So you're not recanting the citizenship.
No.
You're only recanting.
You are only
the
recanting the allegiance. Yes.
And so that should
That
ensure
is
the person
acceptable
can play the
international
role.
law. Yes.
Should it go very quickly? Should it go as far as the presidency?
Well, like I walked in and the idea is coming, but I think the presidency, the speakership, and the chief justiceship will be too far-fetched for me.
Too far-fetched?
Yes.
That will be going too far?
Yes.
Okay.
But the chief justice has been added. So my point really will be immaterial.
It's moot.
Yeah, you cannot say that the head of the judicial organ is less important than the head of the
And that's
judiciary
exactly
or
what
the
I was coming
executive.
to, because
Yes.
these are heads of the three arms of government. What applies to one logically
should be
apply to the
mutatis
others.
mutandis applicable to the other.
Right. So very quickly on this point, Dr. Arthur Kennedy, because I also want us to talk about president's spouses and all of that. Do you feel, Dr. Arthur Kennedy, that this should extend even to the presidency? Very brief thoughts on that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I am talking about practical loyalty. And greetings to my Vanda mate,
Senior.
Kweku Asare, who dreams only about Ghana, was brought up on fufu, whose funuma is buried in Ghana. You worried about his loyalty? Come on. The Americans are not worried about the loyalty of those who were born elsewhere. And we who brought these people up on our customs and traditions, we are worried about their loyalty. Look, let me take you to 1801 to 1803.
But you know, before you go there, just briefly, there's this case of, I've forgotten his name. I don't know whether you would remember. Recently, he served as ambassador of the U.S. to some Latin American states for a number of years. I think originally he was from either Colombia or one of those. And recently it was found out that while he was working as an ambassador for America to other countries, he was actually selling out a lot of state secrets. So sometimes it's pretty tricky, isn't it? For decades, and now he's been sentenced. I've forgotten his name. I'll pull up the story.
But to resume my point, during that War of Independence, people were getting off slave ships in Haiti. They couldn't speak the language. They haven't taken any oath, but they knew the side of freedom. They knew our side. Look, no matter how long a log stays in water, it will never become a crocodile. We are Ghanaians not because we were born in Ghana. Ghana is born in us. George Padmore was an American. He was more fundamental to our fight for independence than most Ghanaians. And he was a very transformative African. That is why W.B. Du Bois is buried in Accra. Bibi Netanyahu is an American citizen. The world has moved on. We have treasure in our dual citizens that we are playing with. And frankly, this notion, the people who have destroyed our country for the most part didn't have dual citizens. They didn't owe allegiance to anybody. They owed allegiance to corruption and to tribes and to religious groups. And they were the people who destroyed Ghana and Africa. These pure patriotic citizens who are in the diaspora, we shouldn't have them even hustling to be part of us. We should be bringing them in because they are assets.
Okay.
Undoubtedly.
Right. Thank you so much for that point. But let's conclude.